When you think of the Chicago Mafia, you probably think of just one name, Al Capone. You picture Tommy guns, fedoras, and illegal speakeasies overflowing with bootleg whiskey. But here's the thing. Capone didn't build the Chicago machine from the ground up. He just turned the volume all the way up. The Chicago outfit, that legendary criminal empire, was actually born from the mind of a quiet, strategic genius and the blood of a man who loved his diamonds more than he loved power. This is the real story of how the Chicago Mafia actually started, before the Roaring Twenties, before Prohibition. Crime in Chicago wasn't really about alcohol. It was about vice, and the undisputed king of vice was a man named Big Jim Colosimo. He was the boss of the Levee District, the city's infamous red light area. He wasn't just a pimp and a saloon owner. He was a full-blown celebrity. Big Jim loved the spotlight. He was famous for wearing flashy suits and flashing diamonds on every single finger. He didn't hide in the shadows. He practically owned the spotlight. But even a king has problems. Big Jim was being constantly harassed by the Black Hand, a network of extortionists who were threatening his life and his business. He needed muscle. He needed protection. So, in 1909, he made a phone call to New York City to ask for help. He decided to bring in his nephew from Brooklyn to handle his security problems. That nephew was Giovanni Torrio, better known as Johnny Torrio. They called him the Fox or the Brain, and he was the complete opposite of his flamboyant uncle. Torrio was small, quiet, and intensely private. He didn't drink. He didn't smoke. He didn't chase women. For him, it was strictly business. When Torrio arrived in Chicago, he didn't just become a bodyguard. He became an organizer. He immediately went to work cleaning house. He took all the scattered, warring street gangs under Colosimo's control and began to unite them. He stopped the endless, pointless infighting. Torrio had a revolutionary vision. What if criminals stopped acting like street thugs and started acting like a corporation? If they worked together, established territories, and shared the profits, everyone would get rich. This idea, this corporate structure for crime, was his brainchild. Johnny Torrio was the true architect of what would become the modern American Mafia. Under Torrio's guidance, Colosimo's empire flourished. It became more organized, more profitable, and safer from outside. Threats, for about a decade, things were good. Then, the year 1920 arrived, and everything changed. The United States government passed the Volstead Act, and Prohibition became the law of the land. Overnight, the manufacturing, sale, and transportation of alcoholic beverages became illegal. While many saw this as the end of an era, Johnny Torrio saw a gold mine. He saw an opportunity of a lifetime. He immediately went to his uncle, Big Jim, and laid out the plan. "We need to get into bootlegging," he urged. "The demand is huge. The supply is gone. We could make millions, more than we ever dreamed of." But to Torrio's shock and frustration, Colosimo said no. Big Jim was comfortable. He was already fabulously wealthy from his vice operations. He had recently divorced his first wife and was madly in love with a young singer. He was happy with his life of luxury and didn't want the extra trouble. especially the kind of federal heat that large-scale bootlegging would bring. He was content. Big Jim Colosimo stood in the way of progress, and in the world that Torrio was building. Business always comes first. Loyalty, family, even love, they all take a back seat to profit and power. When a leader becomes an obstacle, that leader must be removed. On May 11th, 1920, Big Jim Colosimo received a phone call about a shipment he was expecting. He went to his popular restaurant, Colosimo's Cafe, to wait for the delivery. He was walking through the lobby when a gunman stepped out of a phone booth, aimed, and shot him once in the back of the head. Big Jim, the Diamond King of Chicago, was dead. The police immediately suspected that Johnny Torrio had ordered the hit, and while it was never proven, many historians believe the man who pulled the trigger was a young, ambitious enforcer that Torrio had brought over from New York to help him run the business, a man by the name of Al Capone. With Colosimo out of the picture, Johnny Torrio took complete control. He unleashed his bootlegging operation, brought Capone up through the ranks as his right-hand man, and together they transformed a local vice syndicate into the legendary Chicago Outfit, an organization that would terrify and fascinate America for decades. So you see, Big Jim Colosimo built the foundation. Johnny Torrio designed the blueprint and built the structure, but it was their protege, Al Capone, who would seize the controls and paint the walls of Chicago red. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the real history of the mob, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe for more. Next week, we're going to cover the bloody beer wars that erupted after Torrio took over. You won't want to miss it. Thanks for watching.